class and finesse, that's St. Mary's town. Now make no mistake, it's greater than great, that's St. Mary's town. A place where the locals all treat you like kin. It's truly the town that's worth living in. So strike up the band, this lady is grand, that's St. Mary's town. La creme de la creme, Ontario's gem, that's St. Mary's town.
I was brought up in Cabbagetown, in Toronto. We always had an old upright piano in our house, which most people did back in the 40s and 50s and all that. So my mother, God bless her, she used to play, you know, not by ear, but she used to read music. Anyway, 7 kids, and she couldn't put everybody through music school. So my older brother got his doctorate in music eventually, and he's much more advanced as far as, you know, reading, you know, music and all. I can't read a note. Never could. I don't want to. I'd rather just do whatever my body or my musical thing feels like, you know. So my you know, the beginning of my life as a musician was at the Weechee Tavern in King and Bathurst in Toronto. I went to audition with a friend of mine. I could play one-handed piano, and there was a piano on the stage. We didn't have a keyboard. We were auditioning for a weekend. We ended up spending two years every weekend. Yeah, made $75 between us. So we thought, wow, you know, it's $35 each, or just about $40 each, plus all the tips. And the people sending us, you know, like booze and all that. Anyway, Weechee Tavern was my, like, you know, Frank, you can do this. You can actually play music and people pay you for it. I couldn't believe it, to be honest with you. And eventually it became reality, because then Stan and I, built a band around it, which was a 3-piece, because we added a drummer, then a bass player. Then we had an agency in Toronto that was interested in putting us on the road. I thought, on the road? What's that all about? Well, it's leaving Toronto. That would have been around 1971, 72. I was about 20 years old. I was born in early 50s. I won't tell you when. So we just got on the road. You know, the agent said, look, you're booked in Thunder Bay. I said, Thunder Bay? Where's that? North of Toronto. Way north. In the middle of winter. And we go. So, you know, that was the beginning. And we played mostly what we call Armpit strip joints. So the strippers would go on during the day. They would sell, well, the bar would sell 99-cent beans and wieners, and everything was under $1, as long as you had a beer to go see the strippers, right?
Who made more money?
Probably the strippers did. That's okay. You know, they were working 8 hours a day from 11 till when we started, and we used to get beer bottles thrown at us when we were setting up. It says, where's the girls? Where's all the girls? So we did that circuit, called the Armpit circuit, for a long time.
So why was it called the Armpit circuit?
Because it stunk. Every time you went into the bar, it stunk like somebody didn't have their deodorant on. So it was people that worked on the streets. It was farmers. It was go in for 99 cents, all you can eat beans and wieners, or $1.99 if you wanted a bun and some salad with it. And one of the places that really I recall, especially, was in Guelph, Ontario. It was called the Castle something. Anyway, it was a big, exotic strip joint. So anyway, we stayed there in the same unit with those guys. And I used to phone my mother, and my mother used to say, because I was young, "Are you okay, Frank?" I'd say, "Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine." She says, "What's that in the background?" Well, it was a biker pumping some scripper. And I said to my mother, "That's nothing. That's just, sound effects." No problem. Bikers came in, strippers got, that was back in the 70s. I had a lot of, it was a lot of fun for us because you'd work 6 nights a week. And at the end of the week, the owner would bring you a 2-4 and say, "Man, you guys were great. Pack up your bags, go back to Toronto maybe for a day, and then go back on the road." The road was our life. Then all of a sudden we got into a more, I wouldn't say advanced, but a more class places, in Toronto, Mississauga. There was no strippers or anything like that. So we got out of the stripping circuit, but we started that way. I mean, which is fine. We just kept going. Said there's got to be better times ahead. And there was. Best times was when there was a guy in Toronto called Subway Elvis. Subway Elvis was an Elvis impersonator. Anyway, he was booked to go to the Bahamas with his band, but part of his band members were on criminal charges for drugs and all that kind of stuff. So our agent called us up and said, "Could you and the band go to the Bahamas and substitute for Subway Elvis?" I said, "Really?" It's a 6-week gig. It's all paid for. They supply all the equipment, everything else. It's on Paris Island in the Bahamas. And I said, "Boy, that's a no-brainer. Sure. Instead of going to Sudbury or something, yeah, we'll go." So we did. It was all paid for and all that kind of stuff. I still have the article here about what the people would, the paper would say who's there and all that kind of stuff. And we had a really good article. Nothing stops our grandpa. So my band was called Grandpa, So there was a Bahamas band that opened for us. They opened for us. I mean, we were the main act. And we didn't know that.
Why were you called Grandpa?
My grandfather at the time always said that, goes around, comes around kind of thing. I thought, Grandpa, I said to the boys, and we originally were called Frankenstan. Frank, N-E-N, Stan, Frankenstan. Our first picture as a band was with my hearse. I had a 1961 Cadillac hearse, and we went to a graveyard, and we did some promo pictures. I still have, Frankenstan. And at the start, we weren't always Grandpa, so when we pulled up as Frankenstan, I'd pull up with the hearse with the equipment in the back, with 4 guys inside the hearse, and we would set up, whatever. But the hearse was too small for all the equipment. So eventually, we got rid of the hearse, and we got a van, and you're now following the Grandpa van, and before you know it, we signed a contract with RCA Records in Toronto. It had to do with a cousin of mine called John Armpit, who was recording ragtime music at Studio One, which was on Mutual Avenue in Toronto. Anyway, Studio One was the big studio for, in those days, Tommy Hunter, um, Gordon Lightfoot. It was like, it was a big deal for us. So we accepted the offer and we submitted a couple songs to John Armpit, who was pretty big at RCA. And I said, look, you might as well listen to this stuff because we're writing it. And he says, no, it's good. So we recorded a song called Canadian Way of Life in 1973, I believe. And it came out and it was on the radio. I mean, it was funny because I was still living at sort of at home. But when the song came on the radio, I was like, oh my God, that's us. And I was singing it, right? And it's still on YouTube now. Anyway, life with RCA. And the flip side was on the French version. So they released that in Quebec. La Vie Canadienne. I was playing piano and singing lead. The people have asked me in the past, Frank, do you teach piano? Well, how do you teach somebody something that you don't really know anything about? Yet it sounds good. So I'm not sure. I mean, most musicians that you and I have heard of and all that can't read a note of music. The Stones, the Beatles, whatever. They can't read a note. I remember years ago, I heard Paul McCartney say, yeah, well, I look at the Beatles songbook and I couldn't play a note because I don't know where it's going. I'm not even sure what key it's in, And he wrote the songs. I find that musicians that basically can read music are more by the rules or by the book. Whereas if you can't read music, how can it be by the book? There ain't no book. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you're creating music like you do and I do, you see, my brother in Toronto, he's got a doctorate in music. He's by the book. I'm not saying he can't write nothing, but he has a hard time writing something that's not structured, that's whatever. And you and I is sitting, there's a G, there's an E, there's a D, whatever. All of a sudden there's a melody that comes to you and you start singing around to it, you play some, I mean, that's the impromptu thing about music as far as I'm concerned. You don't have to know what you're doing. Do I teach music? No. Because I always say to people, you can't teach something to somebody when you don't know what you're doing anyway. Now, I could teach what you don't know what you're doing. So if you want to learn how to don't know what you're doing, I could teach you how to do that. Last night I had this melody in my mind, and I said to Gail, I gotta go. I gotta go back to the office and just da-da-da, da-da-da. And I do. And a lot of times it works, and a lot of times it doesn't. Most time it doesn't. But I can show you hundreds of da-da-da, da-da-da that I have. And I'm thinking, okay. And sometimes a line will come out that you take. It just comes out of air. I don't know where it comes from. Don't let those little da-da-da, da-da-da get away. Capture them because they'll go to somebody else. And I believe this, I think melodies go to other people. Look at Paul Simon, all these people that have melodies work. Paul Simon, I don't know where it comes from. Bridge Over Troubled Water, I don't know. It just came. I mean, as creators of music, and we are, you create your music, and it's new to the public because the public, then I listen to it, I think, okay, I've heard that chord pattern before and all that, but it's good because you can't just hide. And if you do, and you walk away from it, it'll never come back. Never come back. When I was on the road, it happened all the time. I go for walks, I have my tape recorder, cassette tape recorder. I can show you hundreds of do-do, do-do, do-do's that I'll never get back to. But there was some of them, I'm thinking, that was pretty cool and all that, but I don't have the time to get back and write them and all that kind of stuff. But I do remember them because I do-do over the tape. Now, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't do anything. As songwriters, and you talk to anybody that you don't make up a song. What happens is that it just comes to you. It's there already, and just some other songwriter let it go because they didn't put it down. I would say easily 90% of the stuff that I've written over the years was under the influence of alcohol. 3 o'clock in the morning, you just finished, and people love you, they throw money at you. Now I'm back to myself. And I don't usually get inspired that way, but I listen to what I did perhaps during the afternoon or whatever, and I'll take my guitar out and I'll do something with it. Alcohol, you can use it as a creative thing. If you use it, to go out and punch everybody out and abuse your wife, it's not right. But if you use it as a creative thing, it's great. Man, you can sit down there and have a few drinks and think, ooh, my head's a little fuzzy. I would have said this, but now I'm on, a drink or two. I'm going to say this. And a lot of times the next day you wake up straight and think, wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, how did I think of this?
When it comes to great resorts, nothing beats a Carnival Cruise. All your daytime fun, all your nighttime shows and entertainment, and all your foods included too in one low price. Reach, what are you doing here?
You have to ask?
I think I do have to ask.
I mean,
yes.
after all these years, I bet you could see me now.
It must be working, huh?
It's working on me.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
You're right, Kathy. It's all fun. Shit.
I started playing on cruise ships when an agent in Toronto, her name was Vita Linder. She used to book the Royal York Hotel with Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, and all these big acts. Eventually, for some reason, she found out about me playing at La Castile in Mississauga and thought that, wow, this guy sounds like he can play around the world. So she called me. She says, would you like to audition to go to Europe? So I said, sure. So I went to the top of Toronto, got off the elevator, and this Vita Linder, God bless you, Vita, she's gone to heaven now. She said, you're Frank St. Germain. She says, you're on next. And there was this voluptuous piano player singing Barbra Streisand music before me, okay? I said, I'm on after her? She says, yeah. And these people are taking notes. I'll never forget this. And I said, no. I said, there's no way. She's the greatest love of all that's happening to me. She says, no, just do what you do. I brought my harmonica with some Bob Dylan stuff. Okay. I went on the piano after her. She got a standing ovation. I thought, here's Frank. Was a harmonica long hair. I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not good. But I've gone this far. So why not go the rest, right? So I did. I started playing some songs, some rock and roll and stuff that I did, some Leonard Cohen. And so I thought to myself, okay, great. So far, so good, I suppose. And then I played some rock and roll songs and a couple of Dylan songs. And I thought, okay, I blew these, I just didn't think they'd even want to talk to me. So at the end of my 15-minute set at the top of Toronto, Vita Linder comes up to me, and I was going to the elevator. And I said, I gotta go. No, they want to talk to you. That's okay. I said, when can you start to play in Sweden and Norway and Finland and Scandinavia? When can you start? I said, really? You have to go through the Swedish consulate in Toronto, get your work visa, and they've already, basically said you're welcome to the country and all that kind of stuff. She had the contract because he had to sign a contract. I went to her place at Bloor Street and Yonge, just right downtown Toronto. There's a contract. This is how much you make American money. This is, and it's all American money. And this is where you start. You start at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Stockholm. So when I first started there on New Year's Eve in Scandinavia, in Stockholm, Sweden, I had laryngitis. I couldn't even talk. So what happened basically was like people started gathering around the piano. I'm just starting to play. I'm thinking, where am I? I don't even know the language or nothing. The piano bar is beautiful. I said, hello, my name's Frank. And people would just look at me and say, yeah, okay. I said, you want to sing a song? And I grabbed the microphone. I said, you want to sing New York, New York? Sure. God's bed and Daniel. And I thought, Jesus, man, I can't even sing. And the next day, the manager came up to me and said, that was the best New Year's Eve we ever had. And I said, oh, okay, good. That's great. Well, what you had to do was keep on keeping on. The show goes on. You know that. I couldn't sing a note, but I got everybody else singing around the piano. And once they started knowing that this was a pretty cool piano player, everybody came up. So I got them to sing ABBA music, which was big in those days. Everything. I couldn't sing a note. And it became one of the best nights that the Sheraton ever had. And then, they booked me in other venues. And then I was there for 10 years. 10 years is 6 months at a time. So eventually what happens is that the agents that book you are in contact with other agents. All of a sudden I get a call from ProShip in Montreal. ProShip, it books all cruise ships around the world. Would you like to, play a cruise? But the minimum time was 3 months. You have to go on for 3 months or they don't take it, because it was sailing the Caribbean and all that kind of stuff. Do I want to go for a party, or do I want to give a party to people and all that kind of stuff? I went down to Everglades port in Florida. They flew me down there. I registered in. Most of the crew, the musical crew and all that kind of stuff, put you in the same section of the ship so you can mingle with each other and all that kind of stuff. I got along very well with everybody. You have to be regimental to a certain degree. You have to go by the rules and this. Most musicians don't want to do that. They say you can't, go after hours with a client, or you can't do the same thing as you do in a bar. Like if a bar, some chick gives you a wink, you might say, hey, I'm on the road, come up to my room, right? You can't do that on a cruise ship. There's also other stories about a guy in a wheelchair doing his flips on the baby grand piano because I let him do it. He was paraplegic in a wheelchair, so he was okay active from the start of his body, but the rest of his body was numb. So I was playing, on Carnival cruise ships, and they said the time of your life. This is going to be the time of your life. Everybody is welcome and all that. So he came to the piano bar, and I had some chicks on the piano. It was rotating and all that. Everything was fine. That's what I used to do. And he came up to me and he said, on a break, he says, "Can I go up on the piano?" And he's in a wheelchair. I said, "Can I go up on the piano and dance?" I said, "Yeah, man, you sure can." So I'm through at 2 o'clock in the morning, and people are, we're having a great night. I said, "By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest coming up right now who's going to bring his wheelchair, believe it or not, and go on the piano, and I'm going to play some rock and roll." And he crawls up on the piano, and his wife brings him up the wheelchair. And I thought to myself, "Frank, what did you do?" This is hilarious. So I thought, okay, it's gone this far. Let's take it to where it's going to go. So I started playing some rock and roll, and he's going back and forth, just going to the edge of the grand piano, just going to the edge all the time, never going over, just going to the edge. And he's just, and I'm going, and the crowd's going bananas, totally bananas. This is after it was closed, and they actually reopened the bar. And he finally, took his applause and all that. He came off the piano into the wheelchair, and he was, exhausted. And I gave him a hug and all that kind of stuff. Well, the next morning, I get a letter under my cabin door. "The captain wants to see you." The captain. It's not the music director. It's the captain. The captain wants to see you. I thought, oh, I know what this is going to be. "Yes, Captain." He says, "So you're Frank St. Germain?" I said, "Yes." "We have reports here that you had someone in a wheelchair uh, dancing in your piano." I said, "Yeah." He said, "No, insurance and all that kind of stuff. This is not." I said, "Captain, in all fairness, okay, it says the time of your life. Does it say people in wheelchairs cannot do that? You have the time of your life on Carnival Cruises. If people can do it," and I had girls on there all the time, "why can't somebody else do it?" And I said, I took precautions, everything was fine, the whole bit. He says, "No, you can't do that." I said, "Yes, I can." Because I did. He's probably the happiest guy on board. He did something that he didn't think he could do. He only did it because I said, "You can." And number two, the crowd did not even want to leave that night. So they had the time of their life. So I said, "What's the advertising about? People in wheelchairs cannot have the time of their life?" And I had other people dancing on the piano. The captain says, "Okay, we're going to look into it." Well, it ended up that nobody could dance on the piano anymore on Carnival Cruises. He was the last one, as far as I know. They won't let him anymore. But he had the time of his life, and I gave him memories, I believe, that will always be there. And if that's what Carnival Cruises wanted to do, then I gave him that dream. I never looked at music as a challenge. I just looked at something I could never do. And yet, when my mother and father split up, we always had an old upright piano, and she could never really teach us because there's 7 kids and all that kind of stuff. My biggest inspiration as far as music goes was probably my mother. I got sick in New Orleans. I got sick. I got real sick. I had pneumonia. And I always said to Gail, I said, look, the only time I'm going to ever miss a gig is when they take me off on a stretcher. And they did. Because I was so sick. It was unbelievable. And they called Gail. Carnival called Gail. They says, look, you better fly down to New Orleans because he's dying. He won't make it. This is true, by the way. But they flew her down. And when she kissed me on the cheek, I thought it was the nurse trying to flirt with me. So I was in the ICU, oh God, for about a week and a half. I was just on the verge of dying. I said to Gail, I don't know if I can go on this way. I don't know. I think this is the end of my career. Don't forget, I'm playing cruise ships with 2,000 or 3,000 people. And maybe I'm susceptible to getting sick.
He would have seen the summer through 1991. Could have used a hangman's rope. He could have used a gun. But George and Bay had other plans to how his death bell tolled. Somewhere in her belly is where Mother's body floats. A young man in his 20s shouldn't have to meet his fate on a star-filled summer evening at the bottom of a bay. He should have lived to be a chief, like Geronimo. Instead he met his maker. That's why Mother's body floats. In the land of pine, when those rains cry down, the cold is where Mugger's body floats. How wild and crude and yet serene this northern country is. One day you walk on water, next day it sucks you in, like walking on thin ice, I guess, or waiting on death row. You cross the line, you pay a price. That's why Mugger's body floats. I guess Firewater had a say in what his fate would be. Jack Daniels and a 24 can make you history. But he never felt a thing that night when his boat flew off that shoal near the banks of Okeechobee. That's where Mugger's body floats. In the land of pine, when those rains crack down, cold wind blows, winds do howl beneath Georgian Bay, deep within her throat. Somewhere, prison there, is where Mugger's body floats. Somewhere, prison there, that's where Mugger's body floats. Rest in peace, my friend.
You're either married to kids or you're married to music. So, I was married to music. I mean, I didn't want my kid to think, if I had a kid, where's Frank? He's on the road. No. So I didn't have any kids because it would have disrupted my musical life, I think. And music to me is a marriage. I'm married already. I don't want to get remarried. I don't want to have little kids. And if I do, I'll put them out as music. I enjoy writing. I enjoy creating something that has not been created before. Whatever's next, it doesn't matter. I'll go through it until the day I can't. And even then, I'll say, why not? You know. So I think I'm what they call a late bloomer. You know, if success, whatever they call that, is based on money. I've gone through a lot of stuff and I'm still living and this and that. Do I need success as far as, living on the beach of Malibu? No. So what's left for me is just to have people enjoy what I did, what I do, and what I will do. So what's ahead of me is more that's been behind me. I'm good with that. I really am.
Well, I've been all around this big old world, but I've never seen a place where the trees stand so proud against the sky and the waters which about are surrounding. Well, there's room enough to breathe. I'll put you in a sail at ease. By hearing joyful sounds of song, it makes you feel that you belong to sing. And we got love in our words. We got everything you ever heard of. And Canadian folks aren't afraid to show their love for one another. We got love in our land. Come on over, let me take your hand and lead you close to paradise. It's a Canadian way of life. Well, I'll show you a sight that you've never seen in your life. Our western fortress and Pacific sky overlook the jagged coastline. Well, there's so much to see, but don't you just take it from me. Well, there's a whole lot of people and more who are singing this song throughout the land. They're singing, we got love in our words. We got everything you ever heard of. And Canadian folks aren't afraid to show their love for one another. We got love